If we're given the green light, we got to start coming up with a costume idea. All right, beautiful outside today. Just wish it felt a little more October-like. Even though normal highs are in the low 80s, we are running above that, 85 degrees at the moment. Now, dew points, I was kind of optimistic yesterday that we'd get enough of a push in the mid and upper levels that helped bring some of that drier air in, and it did. Not dramatically so. Mid 60s as opposed to upper 60s and low 70s. Today's high was 87 degrees, so we are running above average, but records can still get in the 90s. In fact, we've had 3 years where temperatures were at 92 degrees on this date. Now, morning lows were comfortable. We were in the 60s, low 70s in the metro area, but with dew points a little lower, we should see these morning lows tomorrow, a few degrees cooler. We had a lot of sunshine outside, and you can kind of see that northerly flow with the cloud motion as we start to get a little bit more daylight imagery here, almost kind of a northeasterly wind. And with fair weather clouds that we did have, none produced any rainfall, so we finally had a dry day all day today. And temperatures are in the 80s, and again, dew points not high, but also not very fall-like, but it was a little more comfortable. This is going back well into yesterday, and notice we were kind of in the upper 60s, low 70s, finally starting to see more low and mid 60s, and that'll likely take us as we head into tomorrow. So dew points a little bit more comfortable, not fall-like, and the driest of the air was out to our west, but even that is starting to moderate, where the dew points had been in the 40s out toward Texas. We're starting to see them return into the 50s. So the drier air will stick with us into Friday and Saturday, but by Sunday and more so into next week, notice our wind field, it starts to return off of the Gulf. So dew points will be on the rise, so the humidity will start coming up, but we're going to have a big upper ridge sitting over us, and that'll keep us mostly dry. So desperately looking for the fall weather. Now, we're not the only ones with above normal temperatures. Look at the warm up across the Texas and the Central Plains. This is kind of the upper ridging that is starting to take hold and will continue into most of next week. So the upper low is moving on, and the upper ridge from Mexico is starting to build in. And this is going to lead to a fairly dry but also very warm stretch of weather through the weekend and likely most of next week, because where are all of the upper troughs that would bring down the colder or even cooler air? They stay out to the west, and that's going to be the trend through the weekend. And this is our long-range forecast starting Tuesday. And notice those deep upper troughs remain west coast, especially over the Rockies and maybe the Front Range. That's about as far east as it goes. Now, there are some signs as we get toward this is next Saturday. We may start to see a bit of a pattern shift, a building ridge out west, and maybe we'll start to get some troughing that would allow for more of the stronger cold fronts to begin moving through. But this weekend and next week, high temperatures are going to remain above normal. And again, it's not just us, it's the eastern half of the nation, and cooler than average temperatures out west. But after next week, it looks like we may start to see a pattern shift, which would be good, and maybe start bringing down some of those cold fronts. Watching the tropics, no name storms, a slightly better chance of maybe seeing what is now Invest 92 trying to do something. However, notice the models indicating that what would likely try and form is just going to meander off the coast of the Carolinas and then likely eventually move inland. And the system is starting to get a little bit better organized, at least in terms of what appears to be a more low-level circulation and some convection trying to get going. Notice the wind shear really hindering that from happening, which is why the chance of any development off the East Coast still remains on the lower side. Again, that's on the East Coast. If it would threaten anyone to be the Carolinas, for us, we remain quiet in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean, and there are no signs of anything coming anytime soon in the Gulf. Maybe, just maybe, we are starting to see the season wrap up for us. Now, again, we're not done just yet, but kind of optimistic looking at a lot of the long-range computer models. We're staying warm to, I'm not going to say hot, but very warm as we head into the end of the weekend. I'll reserve hot for 90s, although in the upper 80s with that upper ridge building in, it may be that a few locations get up to near or at 90 degrees, especially by the end of the weekend and early next week with that ridge sitting over us, but at least staying mostly dry until maybe an isolated shower next Wednesday or Thursday.
All right, Chris.